Okay, welcome everyone, and thank you for participating in the Meet the Candidates Forum for the 2021 Georgetown City Council District 6 election. Our candidates today is Ms. Cherie Heinzman and Mr. Jake French. Thank you to both for agreeing to participate in this forum. It's going to be a great conversation, so thank you both for being here. Our sponsors today is Georgetown Housing Initiative, GTX Connect, and Georgetown Cultural Citizens Memorial Association. My name is Regina Durden, and I will moderate this conversation this evening. Mr. Chuck Collins with GTX Connect will be our engineer. He'll be monitoring our questions and keeping time, making sure that we stay on track. So we are asking our candidates questions that will impact the community as you make your decision for the 2021 November election. Now, just before we begin, I have a couple of announcements. We are recording this session, and the session will be posted on the Georgetown Housing Initiative, GCCMA, and the GTX Connect websites. We're asking that you post your questions on a website called Slido. If you notice in the chat, you'll see the website links for Slido. That's www.slido.com. There you'll find the questions for the forum, and we'd like for you to vote on the questions. You'll see a thumbs up icon, and if you see a question that you want asked, we ask that you click on the thumbs up, and that will bring the question to the top, and I will ask that question. So just please go to Slido. If you don't see a question that you like, please enter that question also. Enter a new question, I'm sorry, also in Slido. And if we have time, we'll get to those questions. Please don't use the Q&A or the chat box that's in Zoom, because we won't be looking at that. So let's begin. Let's begin. Lady and gentlemen, are you ready?
We are ready.
All right. So we're going to start with introductions, okay? We're going to ask each candidate, we're going to give each candidate 3 minutes to introduce yourself. Give us a little bit of your background. Tell us why you're seeking this position. And then I want you to answer a question of how do you define effective leadership? Okay, and how will you encompass that definition as you take on this position? Okay, so we're going to start with you, Cherie.
Of course. Jake, you always get off easy. You always get off easy. So thank you, Regina, very much for hosting this event. We greatly appreciate it. Jake and I are right now, we're coming to the end of this campaign, and it's been exciting, and it's been, quite frankly, both our privileges. And it is our privilege, and it's my privilege to be here tonight, and also to engage in a conversation with our community and with our participants on this call. It's my privilege to be here. I've been, obviously married for 35 years, going on 36 years, to my husband, and I think we're going to keep him around probably for about another 5 years. We made the decision to move to Georgetown to be back with his family. His family roots go back 4 generations here, the Blomquist family. His family is one of the founding members of St. John's Swedish Methodist Church, and was one of the founding members of Georgetown. 6 months after coming back to Georgetown, I made the decision to lean into the community and be part of the growth and development. It was really important for me. I applied to be on the advisory board for GGAF, which was the General Government Finance Advisory Committee, where I served 2 terms. Didn't know anybody. I submitted a resume. I wrote a cover letter. I went down to City Hall and I submitted it. I think I haunted people, but so it was a great education. It taught me about the city finances from the audit side, from the finance side. It showed me where we had exceptions to our budget. We had to look at that. And it also gave me the opportunity to really look at contracts. I then was asked to serve on planning and zoning, where I'm currently vice chair. And I also served as co-chair of the city mobility bond committee, which is really important. We've got a lot of growth that we are facing as a city. And so being on these committees have given me really great insight to the challenges that we have. I consider it a privilege to serve the citizens of Georgetown. I do believe in servant leadership. When our district became vacant, I really had to think about it. I wanted to be very thoughtful on my consideration. So I put obviously my hat in the ring. I'm very excited about it, and I'm very excited about the opportunity to serve this city.
Thank you, Cherie. Jake?
Yeah, my name is Jake French, and first I'd just like to thank you, Regina, and thanks to all our sponsors. I've been looking forward to this forum. This has been a really great opportunity for Cherie and I to really meet members of the community via this medium and get our message out there. It's been an awesome opportunity. I've lived here in Georgetown since 2001, in our house here in District 6 on 13th Street since 2013, and Allison and I have pretty deep roots here and are living our lives very in a tight community here in District 6. We were married at Lois Perkins Chapel. Our daughter Beatrice was born in our house. My brother's buried at the Oddfellows Cemetery up the street. We attend church at Light of Christ Anglican Church off of University in kind of the TRG neighborhood. And I love this community. It's been such a privilege knocking on people's doors and meeting people. It's been a wonderful experience. Just to see Georgetown and meet the people who are wonderful. And I can think of when this District 6 seat became vacant, I could think of no better way to serve our community and seek the welfare and the prosperity of the city that I live in than by serving this community in the District 6 seat at City Council. My career in construction has given me the opportunity to work with a variety of city staff, city councils, planning and zoning commissions, utility departments, and a variety of governmental agencies all over the country. And it gave me some exposure to how cities grow and how cities manage growth and what's done well and what's done not well, and how cities that are savvy and plan the growth do really well, and some cities that don't become a victim to it. In the time that I've lived here in Georgetown, I've seen Georgetown grow and kind of followed that growth from it was the H-E-B and the Walmart on the frontage road to I-35 and kind of a sleepy square to the thriving community that we have now. And I think it's really important going forward to bring that perspective and to work to preserve the character and the soul of what makes this a great community and a great place to live. And one of the things I'm big in, especially with small children, is not just for today, but thinking long term so that generations of folks to come will enjoy Georgetown and recognize Georgetown for that character and the same reasons that I love living here. So I'm excited about tonight. I look forward to sharing some of my ideas and answering questions, and I think it'll be a wonderful time. Thank you again so much for putting this event on.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jake. So we're going to start now. Sure, we're going to start with Jake. How about that? So Jake,
okay.
Tell me, what are your top priorities for City Council to address, and how do you plan to keep your constituents and the community at large engaged?
That's a great question. So my top priorities are stewardship, accountability, and public safety. And what I mean by that is stewardship. Like I said, one of the things I love about living in Georgetown is the 150 years worth of history that we have. And I want to bring a perspective to City Council and I want to make decisions from that paradigm. We're not just making decisions today that are expedient for the needs we have today or the incredible growth that we have, but we're really making decisions that are going to be best for the community 80 years from now, 100 years from now. Like I said, to preserve what's unique and special about this place. on transparency, I think that encompasses a lot of things. One of the things that I want to do, and I think our predecessor in the District 6 seat did a pretty good job of, is having, you know, frank and honest and direct conversations at the city council level, and open conversations at the city council level, to make sure that that we're fleshing out people's ideas and understanding where folks are coming from. I also want to do my homework and look forward to asking critical questions to city staff and presenters at city council, and just make sure that what they're presenting on, what's getting proposed at the city level, is really in the interest of the citizen, all of the citizens of Georgetown, not just special interest groups or the city itself. And then I also view, and kind of coming back to the second part of your question, it ties into the transparency. I view this role as very much as being a representative of people. So it's important to me to solicit and hear and listen well to what people think and what the people of District 6's priorities are, and what their issues are, so that I can be a voice for the people in District 6 on city council. That's very much what I'm about, and I think it's really important. And then lastly, the public safety piece, I want to make sure that our first responders, firefighters, police officers are well equipped to handle the tremendous amount of growth in the community, so that those critical services don't slip. And then also, I want to improve transportation, specifically in District 6 pedestrian transportation, so that people can get to and from their neighborhoods, to grocery stores around town, not just immediately around the square, but throughout District 6. So that's a big priority of mine as well.
Okay, thank you, Jake. Cherie?
Okay, you know, I think in this part, this is probably where Jake and I are somewhat similar, because we see the same, you know, issues in District 6. I have, I think, a little bit of I think the luxury, having served as a co-chairman of the City Mobility Bond Committee. We were handed $500 million worth of projects with a $50 million budget. And we were able to give back to the city council, and we were successful in pushing forth $100,000 worth of what I would consider key mobility issues. And this looks at not only improving our roadways, you know, walkability, our sidewalks, our transportation services, our bridges. And what this shows to me is we are expanding so fast. We are exceeding our growth estimates by over 40%. And so what we're facing right now, not only within our district, but within our city, is rapid growth. Extremely rapid growth. So I've seen it when I was co-chair of the Mobility Bond Committee, and as vice chair of P&Z, I am seeing massive growth, massive rezoning. We're seeing the high density housing, we're seeing the low density housing, we're seeing all these apartments going in. And what we're faced with is, how do we manage the growth effectively? How do we manage affordability? So for me, when I look at our key areas that I look at is, how can we keep Georgetown affordable? We have so many folks that are moving in, which is, there's the positive, you know, because it does bring, you know, more income, more, for the city. And I think that's great. Everybody loves Georgetown. They love our square. They love our parks, but they're kind of loving it almost too much. And so we've got to look at our parks. We've got to look at how can we emphasize, how can we focus on connectivity. I think Jake brings up a very key point about walkability. We have a lot of families in our district, and they want to walk. They want to be able to get across University Avenue without getting hit, to be quite frank. And I think that's really important. So we've got to look at the walkability. We have to look at the connectivity. How can we connect all parts of Georgetown and the downtown area? And that's going to be critical. We also have to preserve our historic neighborhoods, our historic downtown. We love it, but we've got to preserve it. So as we are balancing our growth, we have to look at, what does that growth look like? How can we still encompass what we love about Georgetown, which is that small town feel? We've got to ensure smart growth, and we can do it. And you ensure smart growth by managing and guiding your future development. You've got to support our first responders, because with growth, we've got to support this, our responders. And we also have to be fiscally, responsible. We don't have all the money, in the world. So we've got to be smart about what we're prioritizing.
Okay, well, in talking about and just kind of continuing the conversation on exceeding growth and rapid growth, there's one of our organization's sponsors is Georgetown Housing Initiative. And one of the things that organization is doing is looking at affordable housing and workforce housing. So I have a couple of questions about that, but we'll start out with, what are your thoughts on affordable and workforce housing? And do you feel that affordable housing is an urgent need? And how would you approach this issue as a District 6 representative? Cherie, we'll start with you.
Well, to your point is we've got to look at workforce housing. We have to look at affordable housing. We have, when you look at workforce housing, we're looking at, do we have housing that's affordable for our police officers, our teachers, our nurses? They want to live in close proximity to their jobs. How can we balance that? How can we have attractive and affordable housing? Then when you look at, to your point, the Affordable Housing Initiative, we have to look at that as well. One thing, when I was on P&Z, and I did look at, as of January 31st, 2021, here's one good thing that Georgetown is doing. Now, can we do more? Of course. But right now, when you look at Georgetown, we have over 6,285 existing apartment units. Of those, over 1,200 were classified as income restricted units, with an additional 1,000 classified as low income housing tax credit units. So what does this mean? It means that we have over 35% of our Georgetown apartment unit inventory is operating under income restriction guidelines. And what that means for us, when you look in terms of the tax credit programs, Georgetown actually has twice the average of available tax credit housing projects than any city of its size within Central Texas. So are we doing good? Yes. Is this a continued focus? Absolutely. And so what we're struggling with is, how can we continue to get affordable housing to meet also the demands of our incoming population? So we're kind of playing catch up here. So we're doing good, but we have more people moving in than we have affordable housing. So this is going to be, I think, something really critical that we're going to have to address, and it has to stay top of mind.
Okay, thank you, Cherie. Jake, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a really critical issue, and for me, it's kind of personal. I don't know that I could afford, if I bought my house today for what I could sell it for, I couldn't afford to live here. And I have a brother who lives in Georgetown in an apartment, and he would love to own a house in District 6 or in Georgetown. And he's a professional, been at Dell for a long time, and he's having a hard time finding a house that he can afford in Georgetown, close to us, close to family. So this is definitely an issue that I care about a lot and feel pretty passionately about. There's a couple, I think when you're talking about affordable housing, there's a couple of different issues that I think are important to kind of clarify. The first, there's an economic just supply and demand problem. And that's what Cherie was talking about that a little bit when she talked about just the massive amount of people who are living here and the inventory shortage in Central Texas in general, and in Georgetown, that kind of, it's causing a market anomaly in the cost of housing here. And when people are coming from areas that are typically more expensive, people are coming from California, people are coming from, New York, places where they can sell their house and pay cash for homes here in Georgetown that are relatively cheap. It creates a problem for working class people and working professionals who are trying to live and thrive in Georgetown. The other aspect of affordability and affordable housing is the cost of homeowners, the cost of living increases that we've seen in our utility bills. increases that we've seen in our property taxes based on appraisals. And I think there are some things that we can do and some strategies that we can implement, especially around the peripheries, to kind of mitigate some of those costs, and hope and plan for Georgetown to kind of course correct a little bit when it comes to housing. Some of those things are, I think there's some things we can do around education, especially when it comes to property taxes. I mean, it's kind of a burden, but making sure that everybody's got a homestead exemption, make sure that people know that they can protest their property taxes and sometimes get tens of thousands of dollars knocked off their evaluations. There's ways and tools that we have to do that. There's one thing, and one thing that I'd like to see, and I think it's a little ironic maybe, is Georgetown. I think there's potential for us to lower the city tax rate maybe down the road with the growth that we have. There's two sources of revenue for the city. There's more. It's a little, to simplify it, there's two sources of, well, okay. Out of time.
No, okay. Well, you maybe can finish your thought with this next question, because we're going to.
There'll be more opportunities. Yep.
Yeah. So, and we'll start with you, Jake. Given one of the questions that has come in from the community is, given the council majority opposes workforce housing, how do you see your opportunity to make a difference in this area?
Yeah, that's another great question. So I think there's a couple of things about that. I think first, it's important to build consensus, and I think that's one thing that I'll be able to do. I think I'm an effective communicator. I know and have met over the course of several months several city council members and have good rapport with those folks, which I think from that perspective that'll help some. I also think, again, going back to what I was saying before, there are some things that we can do around the peripheries that will help people in real terms of affordability, that I think anybody who's sitting on city council right now can get behind. Things like education, things like education about property taxes, but also education about some options that we have. We have a pretty underutilized home repair program. Now, does that address some of the key issues of affordability and some of the larger economic issues? No, but in real terms, it can help minimize the cost of living in your house and the repairs that you have to make with an existing city program. I think another big thing, and this is, I'm sure there'll be a question on this a little bit later, is the neighborhood plans. I think that's a great tool, and I'm optimistic about where the city is going with TRG and San Jose. I think part of what complicates and increases people's tax appraisal is when, somebody buys the property next to you, bulldozes the home and builds a $1 million, new modern construction. It messes with the economics of the area. It also messes with the character and the culture and the charm of the area too. And I think that's one thing that those small neighborhood plans will help. I think it'll put some parameters on the size of homes. I think it'll put some parameters on the characters of homes. It'll put some parameters around use, so that you won't see businesses coming in and buying homes in parts of town and turning those residences into businesses and competing in the market for homes in that arena. So I do think that some of those ideas, that's stuff that everybody on city council ought to be able to get behind. And I'd be an advocate for all of those.
Thank you, Jake. Cherie?
Okay. This is such a passionate, I think, topic for both Jake and I, because when you look at our district, District 6 is probably one of the most desirable districts, that people want to move to. They want to move into the historic area. They want to move into our district. And there's plus and minuses, with that. With the high prices It's great if you're going to sell. You can sell your house at a premium. You can make a nice, amount of money. And then, if you have a place to go, that's great. You talk about the city council that they oppose workforce housing. And I'm not sure if that's really a true statement. And here's what I mean. When you look at, and it might appear that the majority of the council, members oppose workforce housing or affordable housing. But then when you go back and you look at our record as a city, and that our record shows that we have over 2 times the amount of affordable housing than any other city around us, we're making some strides. Are we perfect? No. Can we do better? Of course. And I think that's important. When you look at affordable housing, I think there's a lot of approaches that you can do. And I think Jake did, touch on part of it. A lot of it is we can, as a city, I think we need to look at adopting an approach that encourages investment and avoids any kind of displacement. And I think that's going to be important. We do have, property tax incentives, for if you're over 65, which personally I love and I took advantage of it. But it offers caps and breaks on property taxes for long-term residents. And I think that's really important. I think we have to look at how we can preserve and expand our public housing. I think that's going to be really critical for us. It keeps people in their homes. It keeps us in our community. We need to look at negotiating payment plans. And I think Jake kind of alluded on that with homeowners who fall behind on their property taxes. So there's incentives and ways that we can work with our neighbors. We can establish some type of community benefit agreements with investors, with larger projects to ensure that local residents benefit from any investments in our community. And I think it's important that we also need to work with our developers. So we have a lot of developers coming into Georgetown. Well, we need to offer these developers, especially in the higher level of density, in return for funding more affordable housing units in their projects. So we want to incent these developers to come in and to have a percentage of all their housing units to be affordable housing. And I think that's going to be important. We can also look at a loan fund. I mean, this is something we can do on a city level. We can adopt, what I would call inclusionary zoning. So it would allow like 10% required to be affordable housing when you're going into a neighborhood and you're doing revitalization. So these are some of the things that I feel that we can do and we should do.
Okay, thank you. So now we're going to talk about the neighborhoods, and some of the things that I heard mentioned was about the importance of preserving the historic district. Well, the TRG neighborhoods, they have history, and I think a lot of the neighborhood feels like their history is not being considered or preserved. So it's been a plan, the neighborhood plan that's being established right now. As they proceed on that, what do you consider to be the possible deterrents to the stakeholders, and how can you ensure that the concerns of the TRG and the District 6 in general are heard? Because I don't think that, and they always feel heard. So what will you do specifically to ensure that those citizens are being heard? Cherie, we'll start with you.
Well, and I think you've got 2 issues here, and I think, you touched on it. The TRG neighborhood, I think right now we've got a plan. I do know that the city council right now, I think back in 2020, they directed staff to complete a small area plan specific to San Jose and the Track Ridge Grasshopper TRG neighborhoods. I do know that as of March 2021, they've approved funding, and I know that, there are plans in place. They have a city, they selected a consultant. The consultant's been working with, what does this plan look like? So I do know that the neighborhood is, working on this plan. I actually pulled it. It was a small area plan update, which is great. And I've seen where there's been, numerous workshops. We've got workshops going on right now in October. We've got steering committee, I believe, in November. And you guys have done a great job of laying out, what we feel is the TRG plan scope and what the priorities are. But here's where we get into problems. You guys can do great work, but the neighborhood has to be unified in the vision, and they have to stick together with that vision. And what you want to make sure is that we have no apathy and that we have a strong participation from the neighborhood with respect to getting the council's buy-in to the plan. So what can we do? Whether it's Jake and I that are the elected representative District 6, what we can make sure is that when the steering committees are coming forward and they're making their presentations in September and November, that we're there. We're there on city council. We're there representing the district. We're there representing TRG. We will have a seat at the table to ensure that this is being heard. And also we've got to make sure that this is being adopted and pushed through. So it's great to have a plan. It's great to have a consultant. It's great to have all these committees, but we can't let it die. We've got funding. We've got to push it forward. And that's what our commitment is.
Thank you, Cherie. Jake?
Yeah, I want to echo especially that last sentiment. I mean, over the course of speaking at forums like this and some of my interviews with the papers, I've been consistently pro the small neighborhood plans. I think they're a great idea and a great tool. So I want to go on record first as saying I'm a big fan of these small neighborhood plans and am committed to doing what I can, should I be elected, to push these things through and make sure that they're an effective tool, like I said, to preserve the soul and the character of the neighborhood. I think it's really, really important. It's part of what I love about living in Georgetown. I think there are a couple of potential downsides or things that may impact people negatively that they should be aware of. It doesn't, on net, the small neighborhood plans are a great tool, and I'm a fan. I think the things that people need to be aware of, it may introduce additional red tape. If you want to make an improvement to your home, if you want to remodel something, if you want to do certain kinds of things to your home, you may encounter the type of regulation that people in the Old Town overlay, the historic overlay, have with HARC right now, and it can be additional paperwork, additional permitting. So people need to be aware of that going in. I think another thing that could potentially happen, and you need to be, I think also the more specific you can be on the plan, the better. The more direction that you can give to the planning department and to city staff, the better the results will be. So like for example, if you want to be, you may not want to limit the uses unintentionally. If somebody wanted to put a restaurant or something, hypothetically, on Rock Street, it may be a good service to the neighborhood. It may be something that community needs, but if you limit the use too much, it may be something that becomes a really big obstacle to services that the neighborhood may want, and it may be good for the community. So I think you need to be thoughtful when it comes to building those plans of not limiting everything. And then I think the last thing that, and again, potential downside versus the gain, I think on net, the small neighborhood plan is definitely the way to go. But it also has potential to limit the marketability of homes in that neighborhood, or put sort of a ceiling on it. If a business isn't going to come in and buy your home, you may not be able to sell that property for $1 million. Now, on net, that's probably a good thing because it'll preserve the character of that neighborhood, and I think that's a great thing. So anyway, those are some potential issues that I see.
So I'm going to ask a quick follow-up question to that. So we'll just do 2 minutes on this one. So
Okay.
There's all of these incentives and things that the community can take advantage of, but a lot of the times the community doesn't know about the incentives and the advantages. So I need like for you to address, how will you ensure that the community is informed about all of these incentives, because a lot of times people from out of town will know about how to take advantage of things and the people that are right in the community. So how would you address that? We'll start with Jake. 2 minutes.
Yeah, Regina, thank you so much for asking that question. That also gets kind of to how I would have liked to answer the second part of your last question with regard to communication and representing TRG well. So I think part of the way that you do that is you listen and you actively go into the community and say, hey, I'm Jake French. I'm your city council person. I want to hear from you. I want to hear what your priorities are. I want to hear what your needs are. And I think you can do that via a variety of tools. I think some city council people, some current city council people are using Facebook and social media very effectively to get in touch with their constituents. I think you can do, and I'd like to do, again, you know, should I be elected, I would like to do town halls, maybe quarterly at the library, just spitballing, but something that makes me available to the constituents and where I can listen and where I can share my thoughts and ideas and hear what the community thinks about them. Again, this is a representative job, and I think that's probably the most critical issue.
Okay, thank you, Jake. Cherie?
Well, I want to kind of go back to, I think maybe what the original follow-up question was. And I think what you're saying is when you have the TRG, when you have the neighborhood plan, there are a lot of incentives. And it's like, how do we get those incentives and how do we communicate those incentives and how do we make sure that we can take advantage of those incentives that are available to whether it's the TRG neighborhood, community plan or other, as Frank, Jake had said, other plans. Specifically, when I look at TRG, I'm looking at what your the critical needs were, and it was around housing, historic preservation, mobility, pedestrian improvement, youth programming, green spaces. You guys have really laid this out, and you've laid it out very well. We have to make sure that we can get this program, this plan over the goal line. And if there's one thing I'm really good at, which I think people get nervous when they see me walking in the room, I'm an expert negotiator. I've done it for a living. I've done it throughout my whole entire career. And so people know when I walk in, I'm usually extremely prepared. I know how to answer the tough questions. I know how to negotiate, and I also know how to communicate. So I usually will know everything that we can possibly do to take advantage of any asset that's available for the community. How we articulate that is, to your point, we have to get the neighborhood advocates. We've got to get everybody together. We've got to be able to be a common unified force to get this, presented. It's my pledge, quite frankly, to make sure that you guys have all the information. And there's a lot of ways that you can communicate it. You can go through Facebook, you can have, quite frankly, I do Zoom, updates where people call in, we answer the questions, and we have a forum. I think it's important, but there's a lot of different ways that we can do it.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you for answering that follow-up question for me. I'm going to switch back real quick to housing, affordable housing. There is a list of up to 2 years for income affordable housing in Georgetown. What are your plans to address this issue? Cherie, let's start with you.
Okay, let's start with that easy question. Here's the problem is, affordable housing right now is urgent because of it's our explosive population growth. And I hate to tell you, we don't have a 2-year wait. Our wait right now is going up to 4 years. And that is huge. So when you look at your wait list right now, they're currently up to 4 years with the Section 8 waiting list currently closed. And that's important to know. So it goes back to when you have a wait list that's gone from 2 years to 4 years, it's because our population is exploding. We've grown and we've exceeded our population growth estimates by over 40% of our largest estimate that we were thinking on our growth planning. When you look at the city planning, the UDC code, we're like, okay, here's where we're going to be 5 years, 10 years, 20 years out. Guess what? We're exploding. We're blowing past that. So what's happening is our wait list now has gone from 2 years to 4 years. So we've got to get really creative with our developers. We've got to give them incentives. We've got to ensure that every high density build, apartments, low density, that we are encouraging our developers, our community to come together to offer the tax incentives to ensure that we have at least 10 to 15% of these housing units that are being built are going to affordable housing. If we don't do that, we're going to fall further and further and further behind. And we're going to start pushing people out of our Georgetown area. And that's not what we want to do.
Okay, thank you, Cherie. Jake, what do you have?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Cherie on that last part. I think it's really important to incentivize residential development, especially affordable residential development. And it's puzzling to me, you know, not to open too big a can of worms. There's a couple of different sources of revenue for the city. Property taxes is one of them, and sales taxes is another. And we're quick to offer, it seems to me, and I understand the rationale of economic development, but we're quick to offer sales tax incentives to, you know, companies like Costco, but we seem a little bit more hesitant or slow to incentivize residential development and affordable development that we desperately need. And I don't understand. It seems a little ironic to me. So yeah, I mean, it's an important issue. It's definitely something we need to work on. Here in District 6, that's a little bit, it's kind of an odd, just because it's old and it's largely built out. I think that sort of development probably won't take place by and large in the district, but as Georgetown grows, we need to plan for that. And we need to incorporate those areas and make them, you know, easily accessible, close to major road arteries and close to work centers. So yes.
But thank you. And I guess wanted to say, my thought is when I hear that it's not 2 years, it's 4 years, and then I hear what you both are saying, my immediate thought was, well, how long will it take? And how much further we're going to get behind before it's actually addressed? You know, you want to do 1 minute? I mean, go ahead, 1 minute each to address that.
Yeah, very quickly. Here's the good news about this. When you are looking at city staff, and I know we're looking at it at P&Z because we see it, you know, at P&Z, we're seeing the growth, we're seeing the demand, and quite frankly, the biggest amount of multi-housing, you know, units that are being developed are actually in the outskirts of District 6. It is in our district that we are seeing it. And one thing that we are on top of right now, and we are currently looking at, and it is a priority for the city of Georgetown, is we're looking at the UDC code. We've got to go back and look at the UDC code. How can we modify it to make sure that we are addressing this now? So the good news is this is a front and center key issue. So when you look at the 2022 priority for the city, you see affordability, you see this at the top of the list.
Thank you. Jake, you follow up?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think the revision of the UDC, which is coming up, I believe next year, if I'm not mistaken, is a great opportunity for us to really look at this and how do we incorporate affordable and affordable housing into and how do you establish those rates? I mean, they're set by, the percentages are set by HUD, but the updating of the UDC may give us an opportunity to rate more affordable housing than typically under our current UDC guidelines we would.
Okay. Thank you, guys. This is just becoming very interesting, so I appreciate you taking my follow-up questions. So now I have a completely different question, but I think you've seen it on Slido. What are your thoughts, as others have expressed during leisure walking, about carrying firearms around the square? What are your thoughts on that? Jake, you want to start?
Yeah, I'll start. You know, my wife and I have two small kids, and we were in the toy store on the square on the Saturday that, I don't know what that group was, that kind of militia group showed up, counter protesting or protesting whatever they were doing with the AR-15s on the square, and we left. I mean, when we figured out what was going on, we left. It made us uncomfortable. It's mind-boggling to me that anybody would think that it's appropriate to carry an AR-15 openly on the square. That seems ridiculous to me, and just dumb. it's their constitutional right to do that. And the state has said, yeah, we can open carry in Texas. So from a city council perspective, there's limited amount that I can do specifically about that issue. However, I think one thing that I would like to see, and again, kind of outside of the city council sandbox, but there may be an opportunity for me, should I get elected on city council, to help incentivize the county. I think one thing we could do is move the Confederate statue off of the courthouse grounds. And it may be a compromise to move it to the Oddfellows Cemetery, but it seems to me like a good option. At least there, it's away, and it's not going to attract the kind of folks and the kind of protests, and it's not going to attract the kind of people that are going to be inclined to bring guns to a public place on the square. And at the city level, I think we have the opportunity to help the county facilitate a relocation and say, hey, here's a spot at the cemetery, let's move it here. Let's get it off the square. Let's get, the statue itself makes people uncomfortable. The guns and all of the protesting and everything else that goes along with it makes people uncomfortable. So let's do what we can to try and mitigate that situation. Again, it's not dealing with the gun issue directly, but I think it would indirectly help the gun issue go away.
Thank you, Jake. Sheree?
Yeah, you're gonna give Jake 3 minutes again.
Yeah, 3 minutes. You get 3 minutes.
I know, 3 minutes. Look, I don't think any of us like to see people carrying long guns around the square. People want their square back. People want, we tout our square as the prettiest town square in all of Texas, the friendliest. We're one of the friendliest cities in all of Texas, and we pride ourselves on that. Part of it is the walkability, the family friendly of what the square is. And we've lost sight of that. And part of it has been the debate over the Confederate statue. Both Jake and I realize, obviously, this isn't a city council issue. It is a Williamson County Commissioner issue. They need to make a decision. If they can't make a decision, there's a point where I think that the city council, we should be able to lean in because it affects our city, our citizens, and that's important. So you have to move it. We have to pull this away. That's important. Do I like somebody having a gun? I get Second Amendment rights. I personally, in my career, have dealt with workplace violence. I know it firsthand. I've had to take a loaded gun away from an employee during a confrontation in one of my offices. I did tell my boss I did not think I was paid enough money because I think I threw up after I had done that. But the fact of the matter is when I see guns, I get uncomfortable. I want to see our police, there. But no, I don't like it. Can we do something about it? I would think so. I would think that we could. And here's what I mean. We can't legally prohibit it. And I get that. But I think that the city, and I think, Jake, this is what you're alluding to. We can establish, I think, desired conduct and try to discourage the open carry and especially the display of long guns. And I think that's what you're alluding with. We need to start, removing what is causing all this conflict and this demonstrations around our square. So does anybody like it? No. If I see somebody carrying a long gun, I'll be honest with you, I'm turning around and I'm going home. And that affects our business. And that also affects who we represent and who we are, as a city. And that's not who we are.
All right. Thank you both. I mean, this has been a fabulous and fantastic conversation, and I really appreciate your openness, your candidness, you're willing to have this conversation. And, it's 6:50. It's almost time to wrap this thing up. So
can you believe it?
I know, I can't. And so now I'm going to ask for some closing remarks from each.
She froze. Jake, you're on mute, and Regina just froze.
Yep, Regina froze for me too. Chuck, are you there?
I'm here. So
Okay.
I think,
It
Regina
must
was
be
going
on
to ask
her end.
yeah, I think Regina was going to ask some closing remarks. So I'll try and time you and ask for them at first. Help me out here a little bit. Who was the last person
I
to?
was the last one talking. So Jake, why don't you go ahead and do your closing remarks and then I'll follow you and then.
Yeah, that sounds good. I mean, the first thing I'd like to do is just thank you guys so much. Thanks, Regina. Thanks, Chuck. Thanks to our hosts who put this on this evening. This has been a great conversation, and you know, hopefully it's given the viewers and the participants a chance to get to know and hear from Cherie and I. I think the big thing that I want to reiterate is that I'm running because I want to seek the welfare and the prosperity of the city of Georgetown. And as a resident and as a member and as somebody who lives here and has roots here, it's not, it's all of us. I want to represent all of us on city council. The people of District 6, and that includes, that includes TRG, that includes the area they call North Georgetown. I'm here to represent all of the people of District 6, and I'm committed to that. And I think it's important. I would love to have your vote, and thank you very much. Early voting is open, by the way, and election day is November 2nd. So get to the polls, and I would appreciate your support in your vote of confidence to represent you on City Council for District 6. Thank you.
All right. And, like Jake, we're both long-term residents of both Central Texas, and obviously my husband's fourth generation, with Georgetown. We have roots. We have roots in this community. We passionately care. I passionately care about Georgetown. I passionately care about this district. Day one, coming into Georgetown, I started leaning into the community, giving back into the community. Have participated obviously on some pretty intense boards. And I think having that service of over 6 years, working with general governments and the advisory board, working with the Mobility Bond Committee, being vice chair of planning and zoning, it really does give me direct insight and knowledge of the issues and the challenges that we're facing today. So, I'm asking for your vote because I feel that I am ready day one. I have a long history of leadership. This is where I'm going to start aging myself a little bit on Jake, but I have over a 35-year career in executive leadership. I've managed large corporations. I've managed large budgets in excess of $2 billion. And why this is important is I understand all aspects. And so when you do that, and when you have an extensive background in contract negotiations, my background goes back on negotiating on a city level, a state level. I've worked with tribal. I've worked on, I've had to schlep on Capitol Hill, pushing forth, grants for local cities. And I've also negotiated on an international basis. What does that mean? It means that when I appear and when I'm negotiating and I'm looking at a contract and I'm representing a district, I know what I'm talking about, and I'm pretty fierce about it. And I think that's a good thing. It's a good thing for this district. Jake and I are both very passionate, and we both really deeply care about this district. And this is why we both put our hat in the ring. We're just coming from just a little bit of a different angle. I have more gray hair. He has more hair. I have more gray hair. So, like Jake, we are both asking for your vote. I'm asking for your vote. And, more importantly, we really hope people turn out. This is an important an election because we think it's critical for our district that we're going to have good representation. So we ask everybody to come out. We ask everybody to vote. We want people to lean in. And that's what we need to do. I think our district is great, and so does Jake. We want people to just show up at the polls. So thank you so much for hosting. Please tell Regina we lost her. We greatly appreciate her moderating this event this evening. And Jake and I are always available. You can go to our websites, ask additional questions. This hour went by really fast. And as you can tell, we're both very passionate, about affordability and all these ideas. We even actually brainstorm back and forth with each other when we're not even talking on these debates. Thank you. This has been a very fast hour, and we just appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. And I put both of your campaign websites, the address in the chat for everyone. So I'll leave the chat open for a little bit longer. I do want to, on behalf of Regina and GTX Connect and Georgetown Health and Georgetown Housing Initiative, I'd like to thank you both for coming out and agreeing to participate in our forum. I would like to thank everybody who showed up to listen to it. I would also like to make my pitch to go out and vote. There's also bond issues on the ballot. Hi Regina, welcome back.
So
That's
sorry,
okay.
I don't know what happened.
That's right. You just made me pinch it. That's okay. So I was just thanking everyone, and we're going to have the videos out here in the next couple of days on all of the sites. So take a look at them, share them with your friends and family and neighbors, and then get out and vote. Regina, did you want to say anything?
I wanted to remind everybody that in addition on this upcoming election, that there's a very important bond election. The Georgetown Independent School District bond election of $381.7 million. This bond is going to be separated into 5 propositions that has to do with student growth, technology, aging facilities, fine arts, athletics. So we just want the community to go out and look and find out more information about this bond, make an informed decision about the bond. If you want more information about voting, about the election, go to www.wilco.org/Wilco votes. As Chuck mentioned, we'll have this wonderful conversation posted on all of our websites. Election day, November 2nd, early voting is right now, so go out and vote.
Thank you. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you guys for joining, and we've made our time, right on time. So sorry about that.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
All right. Greatly appreciate it. Good night.
Thank you.
Everybody have a good night.
Bye-bye.